Hello everyone. The modern world is full of many mysteries, but even more mysterious is the past and the people who lived thousands of years ago. What were they like? How did they live? How did they dress? What did they look like? Scientists find answers to all these questions with the help of excavations, but sometimes they find unexpected results. Was our planet inhabited by giants? The followers of this theory, as well as its opponents, have their own arguments. We're going to find out more about it. Let's get it on. The idea that our planet was inhabited by giants, or at least that there were giants among the common people, can be found not only in the amateur forums about all things paranormal, but also in the most common fairy tales. Regardless of nation or geography, in fairy tales there's always room for a giant, but is there more serious evidence of this? Writer Michael Tellinger, author of books on African temples, found a giant footprint in South Africa, and it wasn't a dinosaur's foot at all. Watch carefully.
This is just beautiful.
The footprint is really similar to a human foot with 5 toes, as if a giant had stepped on soft clay, which eventually hardened into rock. Tellinger explained that he found the mysterious footprint in Swaziland in southern Africa, on a granite rock which geologists say is between 2 and 3 billion years old. It'd seem an excellent proof. However, there are several buts in this story. Firstly, it's the composition of the stone. Tellinger called it granite, but granite is a form of volcanic rock that's formed from magma, not clay or sand. That is, to leave this footprint, the giant had to step barefoot on the fresh magma, something very different from a clay soil. Sounds pretty dangerous. However, perhaps the giants of the distant past could step on the magma without any problems. In addition, the stone may not be granite, but clay that's hardened for thousands of years. Another supposed discovery by Michael Tellinger, also made in Africa, is a fossil that looks a lot like a human shoulder blade, a giant human shoulder blade. Maybe it's just an unusually shaped stone, but Tellinger has his own evidence. One of them is the unusual reaction of the find to water. Observe.
There we go.
In addition, according to the writer, the petrified shoulder appears to have once been a part of a giant organism. Despite the fact that on the internet you can find images and videos with giant skeletons, the origin of the less controversial evidence has yet to be determined. Thus, in 1890, a sarcophagus was found with mummies of a man and a woman in Egypt. The height of the man, according to the records, was 3 meters, and that of the woman 2 meters. Yes, it was probably quite difficult for them to communicate with such a difference in height, but that's not the most important thing. Just imagine what the archaeologists experienced when they made the discovery. You're digging in the ground and sand for several days, hoping to find at least some ceramic fragments, and instead you find a real giant. And if we believe the words of the supporters of the theory of giants, these discoveries are still being made all over the world today. Most of the time, surprising evidence of ancient giants is found in Africa, particularly in Egypt. Thus, in 2012, on the internet, appeared photos of the finger of a giant. The finger was 38 centimeters long, and to understand the size, we can see a bill next to it. The photos were published in a German newspaper and then appeared on the internet. According to the publication, the photos were taken in 1988, but were first published in 2012. Why was there such a delay though? Well, obviously someone didn't want the giant finger to be made public. The author of the photo is Gregor Spuri, a Swiss businessman and a big fan of ancient Egypt. According to him, in 1988 in Egypt, a private worker promised to contact him with a thief of ancient tombs. Yeah, someone like Indiana Jones, but with a criminal inclination. They were found 100 kilometers northeast of Cairo in a small country house, where for $300, the Swiss was shown a finger wrapped in old rags, a giant finger. The publication quotes Spuri's words, "It was an oblong package, smelled musty. I was totally flabbergasted when I saw the dark brown giant finger. I was allowed to take it in hand and also to take pictures. A bill was put next to it to get a size comparison. The finger was dry and surprisingly lightweight. I felt a knot in my throat. Unbelievable. Judging by the size of the finger, the maximum height of the creature was probably at least 5 5 meters. To prove the authenticity of the object, a photo of a digital radiography from the 1960s was presented. The certificate of authenticity of the find was of the same age, and although we can't imagine the organization that issued the certificate, it still exists. Spuri offered to buy the relic and agreed to pay any money, but the thief refused, saying that the finger has an important value for his family. The Swiss had to go home empty-handed. The museums were not interested in Spuri's photos, but he himself was so surprised by the discovery that he couldn't stop thinking about it. In 2008, the man quit his job and started writing a book about giants. It is called Lost God: Day of Judgment and is a mystical historical thriller. The 6-episode documentary film Search for the Lost Giants was broadcast on the History Channel. During their filming, the Vieira brothers had time to delve deeper into the search, and during an expedition, they discovered that a race of giant humanoid creatures was part of an ancient civilization that existed in North America. You may have different opinions about the researchers' findings, but in one of the caves during excavations, they managed to find a tooth. The huge tooth, which doesn't belong to a predatory or herbivorous animal, looks a lot like a human tooth, but judging by the size, the height of this man can't be less than 2.5 meters. In the late 1950s, while building roads in southeastern Turkey, workers stumbled on a bone. Nothing strange, of course, this often happens in every country and on every continent. In the end, our planet has a very rich history. Animal bones can be found anywhere, if you dig enough. But this Turkish bone didn't belong to any animal, and exceeded 120 centimeters in length. Also, visually, it reminded a lot of a human femur. Now, imagine the height of this man. Although it is true that, as in the case of most of these artifacts, the bone finally disappeared without a trace. It's rumored to have been stolen. But let's leave the findings and move on to history. As we've said, very often the remains of ancient giants are found in the territory of modern Egypt and the nearest lands. No wonder, as this place is considered the cradle of civilizations. But if you look at the ancient drawings that have survived to the present day, you start thinking seriously about the fact that the giants lived in Egypt. This is no joke. And that would explain who and exactly how the pyramids were actually built. Just take a look at these images. Of course, in ancient times, ideas about the proportions of a man and his body were rather vague, but this isn't the Middle Ages. After all, medicine was well developed in ancient Egypt, which means that people knew how their bodies were organized. But then, why some figures are much higher than others? In some places, it's about the social status of those represented, but that doesn't explain the drawings of giant people. One of the most famous stories of the confrontation between the common man and a giant is the Battle of David and Goliath. The young David, future king of Judah and Israel, defeated the strongest warrior in the enemy's army with a sling, that is, just throwing a stone at him. Of course, as in any ancient history, this could not happen without the criticism of the skeptics. Can a stone released from a sling really prove to be such a formidable weapon? Actually, yes, because this ancient device accelerates the stone at an impressive speed. But the truthful outcome of the battle is not as important as its participants. According to legend, Goliath's height was 2 meters and 77 centimeters, or even a little more. These parameters seem simply unreal, but it is worth referring to the Guinness Book of Records to understand that there's nothing surprising about the height of the ancient giant. Yes, Goliath was a big guy, but the height of the tallest person in history, Robert Wadlow, was 272 centimeters. Could Goliath have narrowly surpassed the record holder in antiquity? Oh, easily. Another famous mythical giant is the Cyclops. You probably know about this one-eyed creature from ancient Greek myths and computer games, but it turns out that people managed to find Cyclops skulls. Huge, human-like skulls, just strange and with a hole for one big eye instead of two. These findings were at least 3 million years old, and the creatures to which they belonged were 2.7 meters tall and weighed about 6 tons. Apparently, the ancient Greeks also found the same skulls and immediately understood that they belonged to the one-eyed giants, the Cyclops. And there are many myths that have survived to the present day. Today, however, scientists have a completely different explanation for strange skulls. Apparently, they belong to dwarf elephants. These extinct creatures today have become less common because they lived on islands, completely isolated from the rest of the world, and suffered from a lack of food. And they, like most animals, had 2 eyes. Scientists believe that the hole, which is easily confused with the eye socket, was actually under the trunk and helped the elephants breathe. What do you think?
Psst.
Dude, are you looking for new technologies and great gadgets? Are your thoughts focused on the future? Do you love huge vehicles and can't imagine your life without robots around you? Then visit TechZone and you'll find all this and more. The link is in the description. You interested? Great.